Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com. Today I'm going to show you how to bleed the brakes on our 2005 Honda VTX 1800. Pretty simple procedure. A couple of things you need to keep a track of. One, you want to make sure you keep your reservoir full so you don't introduce any air into the system. Second, to keep air from backing up, you need to close and release your valve at the right time as you're keeping pressure on the master cylinder. Really, that's about it. So let me go grab a couple of tools and I'll show you how to get it done. All right, let's go through some of the tools you're going to need to get this little project done. Just need an 8 and a 10 millimeter just wrench, regular set of pliers, a good Phillips, a pick tool, some type of container for the brake fluid to go into, and then a length of hose to connect to your bleeder valves. That's really all you're going to need to get this done. All right, guys, before we get started, something about brake fluid, it is extremely caustic. It does not like paint at all. So before you get going with this, you want to make sure you cover up your fuel tank, because this is right over, and I don't care how careful you are, chances are you're probably going to have a little bit, drip out, and we don't want it to get on the paint whatsoever. So with that covered up, let's go ahead and pull this upper reservoir cover, and we're going to go ahead and top it off. All right, you've got the outer cover, and then this little plastic piece, and then below that there's a rubber diaphragm. Oop, told you it would spill. There. Then you've got this little piece of styrofoam they've got floating in here. All right, looking at the fluid from up top, I can tell it's been in there for a while because this is awfully dark. And I think once we pump it out, we're going to see a steady stream. So we're going to really bleed this one and try to flush all of this fluid out. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Go ahead and get your dust cap off. 8 millimeter down here, then just a length of tubing. I believe this is around a 1/4 inch, maybe a 3/16. And then just a glass or some type of container to let it flush into. All right, what you want to do is pump it up, hold, and as you release the valve down here, it's going to force fluid out. All right, now you want to close it, pump it back up, hold, open the valve, and then close it. And just repeat that over and over again. See how dark that fluid is? That has been in there for a good while, because I can show you pouring regular fluid that's new. See how clear that looks compared to the stuff that's coming out of there? This fluid has been in there for a good while. All right, this is a pretty time-consuming process. They make a vacuum system where all you would have to do is just hook up the Mighty Vac down here, open the valve, and then it would just pull it through. That's the easier way to do it, but today we're going to do it using just the manual way. While you're doing this, you want to make sure you keep an eye on your level, because what you don't want to have happen is have air get in here. That way, if it did, you'd have to flush it all the way back out. There's actually a bleed screw on each brake caliper. We're going to keep going just on this side till it starts to look clear, and then we're going to switch over to the other side and continue. The reason it's important to do this every so often is when you really start using your brakes hard, you build up a lot of heat in your calipers. Of course, it's pressing in on those brake pads onto your rotor, so it's keeping heat trapped in there. And over time, that constant heat cycling the same fluid over and over again will cause it to break down. So it's important that you do this every so often so you get, in effect, fresh fluid down in your caliper. All right, that's finally starting to clear up a little bit now. So we're going to refill it and then switch over to the other side. All right, let's hop over and do our left side. And you'll notice that the bleed valve, the upper one, which is the one we're working with, is a different size. It's an 8 on the other side and a 10 on here. And these other bleed valves, they are actually there for when you bleed the rear brakes, because this machine has what they call a linked system, to where they the rear brakes actually actuate a little bit toward the front, so you get an even brake by just using the rear brake pedal. All we're concerned with is just bleeding the front right now, and that only involves this upper bleed screw. But basically it's the same thing we were doing on the other side. Pump it up, hold, release it, close. So same game. Shouldn't take as long to get some clear fluid or clearish fluid in there. And it's already starting to clear up. Alright, that ought to get us. We're looking a lot more clear than when we started. Make sure that's snug. And pull it off. Let the rest of it drain in the cup. And just need to replace that dust cover. Alright, we've got our front section flushed out. Only thing we need to do now to complete it is just refill to the correct level. And what you're going to want is about 2/3 way up on the sight glass. Alright, it's important here to note that I have new brake pads on this machine, and if they were worn down, you would not want to go any further than this. Especially, you wouldn't want to fill it all the way up, because when you went to replace your brake pads, you'd be forcing fluid back up and it would overflow this reservoir. So, but 2/3 is about where you want it. I know that I've got new brake pads on this machine, so I can go ahead and leave it there. Next, this little piece of styrofoam back in, then our diaphragm, plastic plate, and then our cover. Alright, that completes the front part of our brake system, but we're not quite done yet. Like I'd mentioned earlier, this particular machine has what they call a linked system, where it's got the rear brake master cylinder connected to the front as well. So what we need to do now is start bleeding the brakes on the rear, and where you actually start that is up on the front left caliper. You'll notice right here that there's another bleeder valve. Alright, that is meant for the rear portion of the braking system. So, go ahead and get that on there with our hose, and we're going to just leave that still in our cup. Alright, the trick is here, now we need to check the reservoir for the rear master cylinder. Alright, so this is where your rear master is. Make sure you get that cap put together correctly. We want to go ahead and fill it up, and we'll start getting the rear bled. Basically the same thing as the front. What we're going to do, pump it up, release the valve, close, and just keep going. Now the reason I chose this one over here is the furthest away from the master. So like I said, we're starting here and we're going to work our way back to the rear caliper. Let's go ahead and refill, and then we'll keep going. Alright, let's switch sides. Do our front right. Alright, we've got it top back off on our reservoir. Let's go ahead and reconnect the hose to the lower bleed valve on our front right caliper. Remember, because when we were doing the front, we were up here. Now we're working on the rear, we're down right there. Same procedure, just keep going. Go ahead and refill. Close that valve off all the way. Now we can finally move to the rear caliper and get it bled. Don't forget to cover up your bleed valve there. So let's move to the back. All right, let's get this dust cover off. Get our wrench on. Go ahead and get our hose in place and continue. Pump up, open, close, and repeat. Already starting to look clear again. And we're down at the bottom. Let's refill it one more time, flush it through, then we can get the final level set. And that ought to get it. Put your dust cap back on. All right, next we just need to set our level. We're sitting about right here at the lower level. That's your upper. I usually like to go just a little bit below it. We do have on new brake pads, so I can go all the way up to the upper level if I wanted. But this gives you more than enough reservoir to compensate the brake pads wearing. So that's basically what this reservoir is for. All right, with that filled back up, don't forget your little diaphragm in there. And just get that back hand tight. Well, all right, guys, that pretty much wraps this one up. For this particular machine, it was very important that you did the front and rear together or at the same time, because they are linked, and you really won't get fresh fluid in there unless you do that. Speaking of fluid, if you need some of this DOT brake fluid, come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. Have any questions or comments? Just leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Until next time, we just want to say thanks for watching.